Welcome to mtbradley. Does your bottom bracket sound like this? If so, stay with me to learn how to make that sound go away.
For the best mountain bike reviews, tips, and trail rides, subscribe to my channel, tap the bell to get notified when I post a new video on Thursdays.
Mountain bikes are rad! You should get one!
Over the years, I've helped thousands of people recreate outdoors, and mountain biking was just one of those activities. Now it's time for me to help you.
If your bike is creaking and squeaking away as you pedal, it might be the bottom bracket. Sometimes these loosen up, or sometimes they aren't tight in the specs. Nonetheless, it can be annoying to listen to. As I mentioned in another video, one possible solution to deal with creaks and squeaks is to find a nice pair of earbuds and listen to your favorite music. While you may not hear it, you're also not fixing the problem. You're hearing the sound, likely because your bottom bracket is loose. While you may not need to deal with it right away, it will eventually cause damage to the bottom bracket and potentially the threads of the frame if you don't deal with it. The creaking noise I'm hearing isn't the bearings failing, but the bottom bracket itself is not as tight against the threads as it should be. Before starting this process, I recommend you wash your bike, especially in the area of the bottom bracket. You want to ensure that we're not adding dirt to the threads when reinstalling the bottom bracket. Once you've washed at least this area of the bike, use an air compressor to dry the area or wipe it down and give it a few extra minutes to dry. You want to keep moisture away from the bottom bracket, especially when we're reinstalling it. If you have a repair stand, place your bike in the stand. If not, you can place your bike upside down or lean it against something like a wall or a deck. Lay out your tools. I have a Sram GXP bottom bracket, Team Cup, English 68 over 73 millimeters, so I'll need a park tool BB-T 69.2 16 notch bottom bracket tool. You'll need the crank remover tool or Allen key to remove the cranks and pedal arms, depending on the type of bottom bracket and crankset you have. You'll need some plumber's tape or grease for the threads and a towel for cleaning the area if it's dirty. To reinstall the bottom bracket and crank arms, you'll want a torque wrench so you can tighten these parts to the proper torque specifications. If you use water to clean the bottom bracket or frame, you'll want to allow it to completely dry before reinstalling your bottom bracket. Prior to using tools on your bicycle, it should be noted here that you never want to manhandle or force the removal or install of bicycle parts. Things should thread on or off without any real problem, unless you already have a problem. Having said that, sometimes you have to use a fair bit of effort to initially get something to move, but once it starts moving, it should come off with much less effort than it took to loosen it up. After we've cleaned and washed the bike, we'll start by removing the crank arms. I need an 8mm Allen to remove mine. My cranks are self-extracting, so all I need to do is insert the 8mm Allen key and rotate it. Be sure to rotate in the correct direction. I rotate to the left to remove my cranks. Carefully remove and retain the dust cover and washers on both sides of the bottom bracket. Clean them and ensure they're dry before reinstalling. Next, use your bottom bracket tool to remove the cups on both sides. Make sure you're rotating in the correct direction to remove the cups, otherwise you'll be tightening them. Over tightening the bottom bracket can damage the threads on the frame, so you want to avoid that. With this bottom bracket, it doesn't really matter which cup I remove first, the drive side or the non-drive side. I'm rotating the non-drive side counterclockwise to remove the cup. On the drive side, I'll rotate the bottom bracket cup clockwise to remove it from the frame. As you remove the cups, the plastic insert will likely come off with one of the cups. You want to remove any dirt or grit on the bottom bracket. You don't want any of that stuff inside your frame or on the threads. This will only accelerate the wear of the parts and the threads. Next, wipe down and remove the dirt from the bottom bracket area inside the frame. Clean the threads and the area between the threads. Get all that dirt out. When everything is clean, inspect the bottom bracket and frame for any damage. Check the threads to ensure they're clean and still intact. If you're satisfied with the condition of the frame and the bottom bracket, you're ready to grease and reinstall everything. Begin by greasing the threads of the frame. Be liberal with your grease. Add plenty of it. Before applying grease to the bottom bracket threads, look at the cups so that you know which cup is for the drive side and which cup is for the non-drive side. They're often labeled. At the same time, look for the torque specs and make a note of what those are. For the Sram GXP, you'll find the specs here. In a previous video, we went over the gear all new mountain bikers should have. Click the I to access that video and look in the description below to download that free checklist. Don't forget to grease the threads of the bottom bracket. Again, be liberal with your grease. Grease will help keep out moisture and helps prevent your bottom bracket threads from seizing inside the frame. Begin reinstalling by hand threading the bottom bracket cups back into the frame. One of the cups should have the plastic sleeve attached to it. Personally, I install that cup first and then install the other cup second. When hand threading, the cup should easily rotate into the threads of the frame. If they don't, stop threading it on. Remove the cup and try again. If it's difficult to rotate, the threads may not be lined up and you could damage the threads of the bottom bracket, or worse, the threads inside the frame. This is an important step, so make sure you take your time and do it right. Once the cups are hand tightened, grab your torque wrench, set your wrench to the required specs and carefully tighten the cups. According to Sram, the torque specs for the GXP bottom bracket are 34 to 41 Newton meters, or 301 to 363 inch-pounds. Next, grab your crank arms. Slide the metal washer onto the spindle and over to the cranks. Insert the spindle from the drivetrain side through the bottom bracket and out the other side. It should slide freely through the bottom bracket. Slide the other washer onto the spindle and up next to the bottom bracket. Grease the end of the spindle or the crank arm threads and opening and slide the other crank arm onto the spindle. Be sure to align the cranks properly with each other so you can pedal efficiently. Use the 8mm Allen key to thread the crank arm back onto the spindle. Once you meet resistance with the Allen key, use the torque wrench set to the desired specs and tighten it down. Set your chain back on the chainring. The pedals and the cranks should rotate freely. If not, inspect your work to find the problem. If the pedaling feels smooth and the shifting works, then take it outside and take it for a spin to see if your creaks and squeaks go away. If they're gone, congratulations. If not, check your work and keep inspecting the bike to find that creak or squeak. After cleaning up and reinstalling my bottom bracket, I enjoyed a creak and squeak free ride around the backyard. Each pedal stroke was free of that annoying sound that resonates through my frame. It was joyous. I hope you find the same success. Look in the description below for a link to the Sram GXP bottom bracket where you can download the specs. That wraps up today's video. You're welcome to stick around and watch me turn off the lights. Otherwise, thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you on the trail.
Check out these videos where you can learn to improve your mountain biking skills. If you're new to mountain biking, you need to get your hands on my checklist that covers the gear you need for your trail ride. Look for the link to that checklist in the description below. If you learned something, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Tap the bell to get notifications of my next video. Until next week, I'll see you on the trail.